Walled City became a popular hub for dentists. Many of those had obtained their qualifications in mainland China, but found their licenses unrecognized in British-governed Hong Kong. This rendered them unable to legally practice elsewhere in the city. The absence of regulatory oversight also allowed various workshops, such as those specializing in metal fabrication, to flourish within the city. And kitchens were selling popular food items that were outlawed in the rest of Hong Kong, such as dog meat. Generally, food production was a common business inside the city, despite the completely unsanitary conditions. It is even said that many of the delicacies processed here over the day ended up on the plates of expensive restaurants across Hong Kong later in the night. While these kinds of businesses within the walled city skirted the edge of legality, others plunged straight into the realms of serious criminal activity. Just because this city is free from the laws of Hong Kong did not mean it was a space without order. Power structures still exist, with the triads, notorious criminal gangs, controlling the city. While businesses did not pay taxes, many of them were forced to pay protection money to these groups. And the triads themselves engaged in illegal businesses, such as soliciting prostitution, opium dens, and in the later years venturing into heroin trafficking. The Hong Kong authorities found themselves in a difficult position, not wanting to let the growing addiction problem get out of hand. A permanent police presence inside the city would be an affront to China, which still claims the territory as its own. Therefore, in the mid-1970s, the authorities decided to carry out many isolated raids, with police officers storming the city for short periods of time, arresting criminals, confiscating drugs, and then leaving again. In addition, various private aid organizations established themselves, operating a kindergarten as well as a Christian missionary youth center that offers help with addiction. The historic Yamen in the middle of the city became a popular social spot, hosting public events for the city's residents. Even though the situation in the city improved in parts, it was again geopolitical reasons that ultimately ushered in the final chapter of the city. Its legal status was a result of the 99-year lease of the surrounding new territories, and it is precisely that countdown that was coming to an end. In 1984, after years of negotiations, Great Britain and China agreed on a handover of all of Hong Kong back to China. This handover was scheduled to take place in 1997, but the breakthrough in negotiations also cleared up the dispute regarding Kowloon Walled City. Despite massive resistance from the city's residents, the two governments jointly decided that the social situation, the risk of fire breaking out, as well as the fear of any of the buildings collapsing, would justify the complete evacuation and demolition of the city. With the start of the demolition in 1993, Kowloon Walled City came to an end. But as the city fades into memory, two diametrically opposed ideas of its existence emerge. The dystopian image of the city inspired a large number of fictional depictions in film and art, often showcasing Kowloon Walled City as a futuristic hotbed of crime and corruption. As such, the city inspired tons of dystopian fantasies. However, what gets lost here is that this city was also a vibrant, tightly knit community. As chaotic as the city may appear from the outside, there was actually a lot of order. And the notion of complete chaos is simply wrong. You could send a letter to someone living inside the city, and despite the apparent chaos, it would get delivered just fine. People came here with nothing. They then raised children, established businesses, and then had to self-organize those aspects of city life that the lack of government had left out. To many, Kowloon Walled City is a symbol of Hong Kong, showing that hardworking people were able to create community even despite harsh conditions. Today, on the site of the walled city, there is a park where remains of the historical city can be found in several places, such as the historic Yamen building still standing, as well as a small model remembering the urban monolith that once stood here. It's easy to vilify, and it's just as easy to romanticize a place like this. Ultimately, the answer might lie somewhere in the middle. The story of Kowloon Walled City is one I've been meaning to tell for a long time, because it's a story that explores the intersections of architecture, history, and culture. Looking at changes of urban places throughout the decades, I think, can be incredibly insightful to understand the world we live in. One of my favorite videos I did that explores exactly these intersections is my video about the construction of the original Twin Towers, in which I explain how these buildings completely changed how skyscrapers are built. This video is part of my ongoing video series Underexposure, which also features videos about the raid on Bin Laden's compound in 2011, as well as a video about the Tenerife disaster, which was the worst aviation accident that ever occurred. These are videos that are not made for the YouTube algorithm. Instead, this series is made for the big screen. A series where I fully, creatively tell stories just how I want to. And the reason all this is possible is because me and a bunch of creators have gotten together to build our very own streaming site, and it's called Nebula. The idea is simple. Since Nebula is not an ad-driven platform like YouTube, but a subscription model, we get to create higher budget productions. Some of my favorite shows across the board are on Nebula. They're entertaining, but since we mostly are educational creators, there's also just so much to learn at the same time. And I am immensely proud of what my original series has become. So go to nebula.tv/neo and make sure you use that link so that you get 40% off on an annual plan. All my exclusive videos are up there, so thanks for the support and thanks so much for watching this video.